Hey guys, I'm back for another Q&A numerology session. My name is Nat from Nat's Numbers, and I have a great, fantastic question from a 5 Life Path today to share with you guys. But before I do, I want to just say thank you to all of you who have already commented on previous Q&A sessions. I feel really connected to you guys, and I'm so grateful and humbled by the fact that there are other souls out there that are interested in diving into this kind of esoteric world of magic. So here's the question from a viewer named Stuart. And by the way, this question is so brilliant because it perfectly personifies what it's like to be a 5 freedom rider. All right, dear Nat, I am a 5 and I find that there is a constant struggle to balance my impulsive and adventurous side with my more stable and grounded side. I'm now struggling to find a relationship that lasts. I've never done anything to hurt anyone, but I think that sometimes my personality can overwhelm people. One minute I'll want to be calm and relaxed, and the next minute I'll want to suddenly go off and do something crazy. I also find my sexuality can put people off. I'm very passionate, and I actually have to try my hardest to suppress these feelings if I'm dating someone. Previous partners have found me to be too energetic and far too impulsive. So I feel that being a 5 is like walking a very thin line with good on one side and bad on the other. How do I create a long-term relationship free from these issues? Stuart, this could not come at a more perfect time. You guys, I am not even joking. I have been up late at night pondering, considering diving into the archetype of the 5, because in my personal life, the 5 is an archetype that I'm surrounded with and I'm very attracted to. My 3 best girlfriends are 5 life paths. My daughter's a 5. My ex-husband was a 5. I am so fascinated by the freedom rider, but also terrified. The fascinating part of being in relationship with the 5 is if you're lucky enough to rendezvous with the constructive aspect of the freedom rider, it is the most invigorating and thrilling experience. It's like a carnival ride of adventure and variety and spontaneity. You feel free of inhibition. I have a 5 Life Path colleague who's also a coach and consultant, and when I go and have a business meeting with her, I know one of 2 things is going to happen. I'm going to walk out of there either feeling completely renewed, where she's introduced me to new worlds and new possibilities that have absolutely blown my freaking mind, or I'm going to walk out of there destroyed for days. Why? Because the terrifying aspect of the 5 freedom rider is the villain, the inner villain, and it's the escape artist. So it's important to understand that every superpower in archetypal numerology has the ability to be used for heroic or villainous purposes. But becoming aware of that inner villain is absolutely essential, because the escape artist has the ability, if embraced, to become an advocate for intimacy and depth in relationship. But if the villain is ignored or suppressed, like most of us do, then it becomes the destroyer. So what are some of the calling cards of the escape artist? How do you see if this is showing up? Here are the top 3 that I've noticed. Number 1 is nonstop drama, chaos, and pandemonium. And if you know a 5, or if you are a 5, you can probably understand this right off the bat, because 5s have the tendency to be either incredibly attracted to messed up, wonky places, or they create it themselves. And what they report to me is they'll say, I just feel like I want to stir things up to feel alive. Now, the reason behind this is because you're designed for change and progress. It's a part of your mission. But you oftentimes misinterpret chaos as being a sign of progress, when what it actually does is it sets you back. A second theme, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a second, is a big one, and it's destructive pleasure seeking. It's where you opt for short-term pleasure that creates long-term suffering. And the last one is a lack of commitment. And so this can obviously be a lack of commitment to a relationship itself, where you sort of hop from person to person, but it can also be job hopping, idea hopping, opinion hopping. hopping from one health routine to the next. So the escape artist is not personal to just you. It's something that is also quite historical. So the ancients have been talking about it, and they kind of call it perpetual hunger. So the Sapona Indians, their version of hell was a land where you were always hungry and you could never be satiated. And one of my favorite characters that you see popping up in Greek and Norse mythology, Native American legends and lore, even European fables, is the trickster. And the trickster takes on different forms, the fox, the raven. But he's always this hungry and horny character that strives for chaos and commotion. But the ancients revered the trickster. And this is where it gets really, really rich, Stuart, because the trickster was honored for his ability to defeat and outwit those things that might devour us. The trickster is the character that instigates change and progress and masters the art of hunger, masters the art of being full. All right, so here are some examples of how that escape artist trickster shows up in specific ways. You have an uncomfortable feeling, whether it's boredom or suicidal suffering, anywhere on the spectrum, and you pick up your drug of choice. So you pick up the joint, the cup of coffee, the bag of donuts, you go seek out sex, right? We've all done that. Here's a common one that a lot of people don't talk about, but it's very prevalent. And you might think that you're pure, but we've all had this experience. You're in a committed relationship, but you find that you're attracted to somebody else. Complete stranger, coworker, doesn't matter. And you decide to invest more of your energy, either in the fantasy world or the real world, in that person, than carrying that back to the relationship that you're in. Another example might be that you feel this gnawing emptiness inside, and you want to change the outside to somehow change what's going on the inside. So you feel like going on that vacation or moving to the new city is going to somehow fix the problem that's happening internally. So these are just some initial examples. I would love to hear from you guys. What are the crafty ways that you guys get the hell out of Dodge when something gets uncomfortable? Please comment below. I cannot wait to read them. But the point here is that the trickster wants to get away from what's no longer pleasurable and what's no longer working. But what the ancients were trying to teach us is that the five trickster, the five escape artist, is instead has the potential to be a catalyst for reinvention, a catalyst for absolute change by focusing on the present moment. All right, so what happens when we operate from the escape artist? And Stuart, you already have kind of alluded to what has happened for you, but it's something that you could call the Peter Pan syndrome. And fives come back and they report to me with so much frustration that there are certain areas of their life that feel frozen, under or undeveloped, immature, neglected, where you can't reap what you sow, where you can't harvest true reward because you haven't fed the terrain. And so what I'll see is I'll find perpetual bachelors or bachelorettes, people who, for instance, are constantly in entry-level positions in companies and never reaching the higher echelons. So how do we break this cycle? How do we break the cycle of what Mark Chamberlain in his book Wanting More calls the soul-impoverished downward spiral of wanting more and more while we enjoy what we have less and less? That's like the definition of perpetual hunger right there. So in my work, I found that there are 2 training exercises that can jumpstart this process. And in particular, this can be incredibly powerful for relationships. So the first one is the blackout. And I came up with this idea from my own personal life. I used to live deep in the woods in Northern California. And one winter, we were just inundated with like 10 feet of snow. And so we were without power for 10 days. Now, ironically, during this blackout, I experienced the most connection with my family, the deepest sleep, the most laughter. The food tasted the best that it ever had. And the research behind this is that if the less stimulation that you can tolerate, the more pleasure you can experience. And we've all had that experience, like, you eat a banana and it's kind of bland and boring, but if you go on a detox, that banana becomes the most decadent, delicious dessert that you could ever imagine. So the way that this blackout would work in relationship is that the more that you can engage in manufacturing your own blackout, your own sort of overstimulation detox, is that instead of, for instance, in intimacy, instead of needing to watch 1 hour of pornography and have role playing and costumes and all these gadgets, which is oftentimes where fives have to go because their level of stimulation has been numbed, that through these blackouts, you can feel so much eroticism and sensuality and connection from your lover touching your wrist. I mean, that's the potential here. So the way that this would look is like choose one day a week where maybe like right after you make dinner, the blackout starts. So you pretend that there is no electricity and see what happens. See what emerges as you have to listen and reveal the subtlety of sensation in your life. And the last training exercise is, I know you guys are going to be like, oh my God, not this again, but it's appreciation. Gratitude has been shown to increase our level of happiness by 25%, which is huge. But also in relationships, it's shown to increase depth and intimacy and bond, okay? So there's a lot of different gratitude exercises out there. One of my favorites is really simple. It was used in actual clinical settings and it's been shown to be very effective. And it's at the end of the day, write down the 3 things that worked the best for you during the day and why. Pretty simple, right? There's also a book out called The Magic by Rhonda Byrne, and it's a 28-day gratitude practice, and that's really beneficial for Freedom Rider 5s because you guys love variety and like to pick and choose from things. So that's another option. But the key here, Stuart, is to understand that by allowing yourself to, instead of escape from things, instead of getting away from that sense of boredom or getting away from that discomfort, that you can dive into things, that you can dive into the sensation. Okay, so I hope that this helps. I cannot wait to hear how the blackouts go. It's one of my favorite things to do. And if you guys have a question that you want to be featured on the next Q&A session, please comment below. Leave your birth date and a detailed but specific question. I cannot wait to talk with you guys again soon, and I hope you have an awesome week ahead. Bye.